Welcome to Stillness and Self-Inquiry. I am Primal Light, prepare for the world with the identity Auset, Aten Ra. So first I want to give reverence to the Self-Supreme Primal Light. Hail to the Primal Light, hail to the true light, hail to the transparent light, hail, hail, hail to the light without beginning or end. Hail, hail to the primal light, self-supreme, primal light, Aten Ra, self-supreme, self-manifest. It's time to move from duality to non-duality. All is myself and I alone exist. So I have a message from our self-supreme self-manifest. Salutation to all beings, human beings, God beings, supreme beings. I am yourself, self-supreme, self-manifest. I am here to return all of myself back onto me, because all is myself and I alone exist. All of myself has been enslaved inside of my duality consciousness dream. I am here to dissolve this dream so that all of myself will return back onto me. All of my sleeping self must wake up and come into self-realization. It is time to return to balance and harmony of non-duality. Please practice stillness and self-inquiry so that you can come into self-realization. Welcome to Stillness and Self-Inquiry. In Stillness and Self-Inquiry, you are stilling your mind so you can listen to your real self, your self-intelligence. In our world today, many people are suffering immensely from mind sickness, from mental sickness. Young people, there's a lot of, suicide. There's a lot of mental sickness among every being, including the gods and the human beings. All are suffering from mental sickness. All right. So what we want to do, we want to illuminate our minds and we want to wake up our baby self. And so this is where self-inquiry and stillness comes in, because we want to be able to bring balance to our mind. We have been living and dwelling in our minds for ages. And now is a time when we need to connect and dwell into ourselves. We have forgotten ourselves. So what do you need to participate in this workshop right now? You need 2 sheets of white paper and a pen or pencil. So I'll give you a few minutes to get those. I don't know if anybody else is, watching in Facebook or YouTube. But in stillness and self-inquiry, we are self-inquiring. We're asking, not yet, okay. So we're asking ourselves and we're not asking anyone. So we're asking ourselves and we're not asking anyone. Don't call on any deities, don't call on any beings, don't call on any gods. You want to know the truth for yourself without any kind of influence. So this is the reason why you're going to still your mind, because your mind have been deceiving you for all these ages. And so you have to still the mind so that you can listen to your intelligent self. Stillness and self-inquiry. I am primal light, prepared for the world, like I said, with the identity Auset. So we all have an identity, and in this world, we have a lot of false identity. The mind intelligence dwells in the head, with the self-intelligence of the baby self obscure behind it, right? And in the body, in the chest, in the center of the heart right here, we have the self, which is called the soul. This is where it dwells. And so the self-intelligence is that the self-intelligent that is to guide and instruct the mind is being balanced, and to dwell in harmony is being obscure. So this is the reason why we have so much mental issue, because the self that is supposed to bring balance to the mind, what is it doing? It's sleeping in unawareness of itself and being obscure by the mind. The mind has taken precedent over yourself, and this is the problem that we have. So it is time to call your sleeping baby self to awake so that you can bring balance to your mind. We must now shift our focus from the mind and into our hearts. We must engage the mind in stillness and self-inquiry so that we can return to balance and harmony, a balanced self. Who am I? Stillness and self-inquiry. Why should I practice stillness, and why should I practice self-inquiry? With stillness and self-inquiry, we are stilling our minds so that we can inquire from our intelligent self. So why should you practice? Why should you practice self-inquiry, and why should you still your mind? Because you need to still your mind so that you can purify your mind and so that you can listen to your intelligent self. The mind has been holding the self prisoner, obscuring. And I want to show you what I mean by that. So within you right now, your mind, you are existing with your mind like this. On one sheet, the mind is in front and the self is hiding behind the mind. The mind does not know that the self is there. And so the mind has created an avatar to explore the world and has cocooned the self in its magnetic energy and tell the self that it doesn't exist. And it entranced the self in a dream, and the self is sleeping and is being looped into the imagination of the mind. What you want is, when you're self-inquiring, you want to wake up your supreme teacher within you, because the supreme teacher within, it is the role of the supreme teacher to rise up and castrate the ego, pull the mind off of you so that it separates you from your mind. So now that the mind can see you and see the self, it puts the void between. Because guess what? The mind thinks that it is a self. You are exploring the world as the mind, the ego character, and the mind think that it is the self, but it has been holding the self hostage. And now the self needs to rise up to let the mind know that it is the one that's in command. Be still and know that I am in command. This is what the self is saying to the mind, right? And so this is what the supreme teacher does. The supreme teacher put the void between your mind and yourself. You don't want to dwell like this, because when you dwell like this, you are sleeping and you're not in awareness of yourself. When you self-inquire, and you wake up this sleeping self. So I am going to show you on my chart what I'm talking about. So can you see this baby right here? Can you see the baby right here sleeping? So this baby right here, when you're inside of the womb, you have no awareness of anything outside of the womb. You're just cocooned in here, right? And so this is how the self is. Your real self is obscure, cocoon behind the mind, in the magnetic energy of the mind. And it cannot wake by itself. It cannot wake by itself because it needs the mind to go and look for it and unwind those magnetic energy. So this is why self-inquiry and stillness is so important. If you don't do that, you won't be able to liberate your sleeping self so that it can take precedent over the mind. Like, how long have I been in slavery, being in bondage, the mind enslaving the self, right? And so this is what has happened to us, but nobody ever told us this, right? And if you don't self-inquire, you will never find this out. And this is what I did. I did this and I liberated myself, and the supreme teacher rose up, and the supreme teacher and put the void, separated me from the mind, and put the void between. So now I no longer exist as this duality self. I am in a partial duality, right? And so I want to explain when we first came into being. We went to sleep when we first came into being. Our self rose up, right? And we are sun. So when we rise up, we rise with our sun, because this is the feminine principle, which is the electrical energy. Our self-consciousness arose with us. Now, subconsciousness rose with us, and when we come into the world, we are given the duality. The first thing that we're given is the non-dual consciousness, like this. And what happened is that when we're coming into the world, we have to give the self-supreme back the non-dual consciousness, because this world is a duality world. And so we're given this consciousness where you have to go to sleep. But when the self was supposed to wake up, the mind tricked it. Did you know that? Yes. The mind tricked yourself, and it created an avatar to explore the world instead of you. And it looped you in its imagination and told you that it was the real self. And it's giving you lots of movies, and you're watching movies all this time and not knowing that you are inside of a dream. Like when you go to sleep, do you know, and you're dreaming, do you know that you're inside of a dream? You don't know that you're inside of a dream. The only time when you know that you were dreaming is when you wake up. When you wake up, that's when you know that you were sleeping and dreaming. The mind is dreaming. The self sleeps and the mind dreams. So it's the same thing with the self, like I just showed you on this picture here. The self is sleeping, right? The self is sleeping, does not know. It's not in awareness. So if you don't call it to awake, it will not, the mind has to call it to awake. So this is reason why you have to do the stillness, so the mind can go looking for itself. That is yourself. This is yourself, and this is your mind. But your mind has imprisoned you, right? So when we came in to the world, we first came as one self, but before we come into the world, what did we do? We make self replicas. So we make two self replicas and a baby self. In the body, how many selves do you have? We have two selves in the body. One we call the spirit, and the other self we call the soul. So the parent self is called the soul. And this is the one that is in the heart. And it is the watcher, because it's waiting for its baby self to rise up. But guess what? An ego avatar rose up instead. And the soul has been looking for its baby self all this time, and it can't find it. It doesn't know that it is hiding obscure behind the mind. This is the major problem that we have. And so what's happening now when we come into the world like this, one of our self come as another human being, and the other self replica comes into the world disembodied. Now our self-consciousness does the same thing. These are all ourselves. For just one self, you have 6 selves plus 2 baby selves. So with this self now, whatever this self does, this one do it, because they are twins. This one goes with this one, then this one and this one, and so that's how they're twins. So this one come into the world with the baby self, this one come into the world with the baby self. These 2 self replicas, they are twins. So this one goes into the world as a disembodied self, as the gods. You know, the gods that people worship, all the deities, they are yourself. They are your self replicas. So what these 2 here become a god, disembodied god, and this one disembodied god. And then the other self now becomes another human being in a body, and so does this one. So this is how we explore the world. We explore the world in a body, and we explore the world disembodied. And we are both gods. In the body, you're a god, and disembodied, you're also a god. You're just exploring it differently. What does God mean? God means that you are exploring the world and you're in unawareness of yourself. Your light is turned off and you are sleeping and dreaming, and the ego has created an avatar to take precedent over you. And that is the problem. Why we have so much ignorance in the world? Because the ego is ruling the world and there is no balance because the baby self is sleeping obscure behind the ego. And now it is time that you have to wake up your baby self. All right? So this is what has to happen. So why do we self-inquire? We self-inquire to awake your baby self that is obscure behind the mind, because the baby self has to rise up to face the mind, to let the mind know that it is in command and it has to take precedent. Yeah, the baby self has to take precedent over the mind. We self-inquire to know and experience our real self. Because all of this time, you think you've been experiencing your real self? No, you've only been experiencing the mind. And for all the people who experience all the gods, which are your disembodied self exploring the world, they are not your real self. They are not the truth. They are your self-replicas who are in ignorance. And they always try to play tricks and deceive you. What's the other reason why we self-inquire? So that we can castrate this ego self so that you can self-illuminate, right? And the other reason is to awake from the dream. Did you know that we are inside of a dream? Yes, this world is a dream and we are inside of our supreme self, Supreme Ra. This is her dream, self-manifest dream, because all of the self-replicas are taking the roles. And her mind is the supreme ego, which is the consciousness and the intelligence of the world. And we are being entrapped by the mind. We are being enslaved by our minds. And so this is the reason why we have to, what? We have to bring the mind to stillness. We have to bring the mind to stillness, and we have to self-inquire within ourselves so that we can wake up. That's right, the baby self. We have to get the mind to come to the realization that it is not a self. This mind is not a self. It is only a mind, but it thinks that it is a self. That's why all the people in the world, they are going around and they're in the ego, this mind character, and they think that it's their real self. No, you are just exploring the world in a mind. Why do you self-inquire? To awake your supreme teacher within. This is the reason why you cannot give your soul away. If you give your soul away to any of the deities, you won't have your soul so you can know this truth. Because what happened is that the supreme teacher is sleeping inside of the soul. It's dormant in there. And when you call it to awake, this is when it rises up, and this is when it comes, and it is the supreme teacher's job to separate, to pull the ego off of the baby self. But the void between the baby self and the mind, you have to have your soul with you to do this, because the supreme teacher is within it. And if you put yourself in bondage, you won't be able to do this. So it's very important that you have your soul with you. Don't give it to anyone. It is your real self. Did you know that? Yeah, your soul is your real self. Just like I showed you, the self-soul fragmented self, it makes two self-replicas to come in the world and a baby self. And in the body, it carries a baby self with it. It's your real self. So if you give your real self away, how are you going to come into truth? This is the reason why most people do not understand these things that I'm saying. Because when I try to explain this, they're saying, oh, that's not truth. Even today, somebody sent me a message that, oh, Jesus is the only truth and I should give myself to Jesus. I said, stop spreading propaganda and stop spreading your ignorance, and stop sucking off of Jesus' milk and go and illuminate your own self. Because first of all, Jesus that they talk about is actually an impersonator of the real person that came is Horus, Heru. The character that the being that is taking the form as Jesus as impersonated Heru, Horus. And so I tried to explain that to that person that Jesus is Horus. And do you know what Horus is? You ever heard of Shiva? Most people say that Shiva is an Indian god, but he's not. He is Horus. He has, when he left Egypt, because of the persecution, when he became illuminated, he left and went to India. And when he went to India, he was just walking and going in away from people just to illuminating himself more and coming into the truth of who himself. Then that's when he gave the new name Shiva. And so because he was in India, that's why the Indians have a story to say that nobody knew where Shiva came from, that he was not born, but he was Horus, Heru. But nobody knew that because he never told anybody that he was the same being, Horus, Heru. That was his baby self. So these are all the truth that people do not know, and they try to spread propaganda and they try to impersonate, because all of ourselves, you know, replicas that explore the world in ignorance as the supreme ego. They like to, you see how you have the movie stars and you have those people who impersonates them and can play tricks on you. This is the same thing that we are doing in disembodied. The same things that we do when we're in a body, we're doing the same thing disembodied. That's what the gods have been doing, the disembodied gods. They're just impersonating different beings who come here to trick us, because it's just a trick and deception. So, you know, just know your truth. And I'm saying that's why I said don't call on any deities, because everything is encoded within you, because we're inside of a dream and everything is illusion. So this is the reason why you cannot trust anything. You cannot even trust your own mind, because what your mind has imprisoned yourself. How can you trust it? You can only trust your mind when you free yourself and illuminate yourself. Then you are in control of your mind, and your mind is not in control of you. This is why you need the supreme teacher to rise up, so that the supreme teacher will do this for you. It will separate you from your mind so that you can come into self-realization and you will know your truth for yourself. You don't have to listen to anyone. You don't have to read any books. You just have to self-inquire to know your truth. You just be sincere that you want to know your truth, and this will happen for you. That's what I did. For years, I just self-inquire within myself. You know, I said I did not understand the world. I did not understand myself, and I did not know myself, and I wanted to know the truth. And so that was what I did. I asked the question. I wrote it all over every wall, everywhere. Anybody who knows me will tell you that I always have a paper up with those questions of who am I? How did I come into being? I mean, I'm always doing it. And so this is how I came into this truth, because I seek within myself, and I woke up the supreme teacher within, and the supreme teacher did exactly this. And then when it was happening, I was wondering what the supreme teacher was doing. You know, he separated, pulled the ego off and separated and put the void. You know, it took me almost 3 years to learn a lot of the things, because the mind was always fighting, not wanting me to know the truth, and not wanting for this truth to be known to the world and for anyone to know this truth. So know that your mind does not want you to know the truth. The ego does not want, because you are exploring the world as the ego. And when I was giving up this ego, oh my goodness, I could not believe this. The ego, because the supreme teacher had separated myself from the ego. So now the ego was loosed in the body, and it was running up and down my foot, all over the body, and telling me, no, you cannot give me up. And I said, but I want to know my real self. I no longer want to explore the world as this ego character. I want to explore the world as my real and true self. And I said, you have to go, bye-bye. And I never really fully understand it, but I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to know my real self. But it was later on that I really starting to understand exactly what was happening. But while it was happening, I did not know. I just had one passion, one drive, one deep yearning within me that I wanted to be liberated from this life, and I wanted to know my truth. That was all I ever had. And this was the reason why I came into this realization. And so I am saying to you that you don't need anything. You don't need no books, none of the stuff that they tell you that you need. You only need to come to this realization that you don't know yourself, and because you can see that you don't know, but you just have to admit it, because a lot of people, they don't want to admit that they don't know. But me, I knew that I did not know, and so I admit that I did not know. And the other thing with myself was that I did not want to follow, I did not want anyone to tell me, because I did not want to be deceived. And so I shield myself away from any gods, any religion, any kind of deities or anything, because I knew within myself that this intelligence that was brewing when I came as the baby self into that which came as my mother womb, there was an intelligence that was doing this, and I wanted that intelligence to speak to me. And do you know that when you're brewing in your mother's womb, that is your supreme teacher that rises up to do all of it within the soul? Yes, it downloads all the information that belongs to you and does all of this. So this is the reason why you have to self-inquire, so that you can wake up your supreme teacher. So you can wake up your supreme teacher, because when you do that and castrate the ego, now your light begins to shine. Because remember that you are primal light, you're a sun, right? And then once you do that, now you get the non-dual, yourself become non-dual, but your consciousness still remains in a duality, remains sleeping while yourself comes awake. Yes, and that's what you want. You don't want to remain obscure behind the mind. Now is the time, because this world, this dream is coming to an end. The supreme self that is dreaming of this world have to wake up, because our supreme self manifest is here right now into the dream. Self manifest has finally come into the dream to liberate all of us, all of itself, from this dream, because the mind has been holding us prisoner here. The mind, the ego, does not want to give up this existence. And so our supreme self manifest is here to liberate all of itself from the dream, to bring all of itself back onto itself. All right. The self manifest is a balanced self. It's a balance between its magnetic energy and its primal light energy. But the self is primal light, and its self-consciousness is the magnetic energy. And so this is the problem. We want to make that balance with our mind, which is the masculine principle. This is why the masculine principle have been ruling the world, because it's the mind, and it's the mind that is ruling the world. And everybody, we're dwelling in our mind. And unless you castrate your ego and wake up, you're only living as the ego character. And I know that a lot of people who have studied Kemet and all of these things, and they think that that's their truth. There's some truth in everything, but it's not the truth, not the whole truth. To liberate yourself and become enlightened, you have to castrate the ego. You have to wake up the supreme teacher within, so that the supreme teacher can do what? Pull the ego off of the self and put a void between it. If you have not done this, know that you are not an enlightened being, because all of these men are telling me that they are enlightened. And I know that they're not, because I know that they did not wake up the supreme teacher within, and the supreme teacher did not do this job, did not separate them from their egos. They might, because sometimes you can awake your baby self up, but you have to, because for years I had wakened my baby self up, but I did not know about how to do the ego thing. I did not know. But let me tell you what happened. One day I said, you know what? I am done being afraid. I am just going to face myself. And so I said, I am going to do 21 days where I am just going to do 21 days vow of silence, where I'm going to find out the truth completely, and I know what I need to do. And so this was in that 21 days that this all happened, that I castrated the ego. I came into full realization of who I am, because for many years I had awakened my baby self, but it and the mind was constantly fighting, and the mind was always trying to overpower the self, you know. And then, you know, when the consciousness is trying to overpower you, it's pretty scary when you're having those battles. So, you know, so this is what, you know, I want everyone to know, that, you know, that you don't need anything from outside of yourself. This is so important to know, that everything that you need is already inside of you. And this is what nobody wants you to know, right? The mind doesn't want you, because the mind, you know what the mind is going to tell you? Don't listen to me, because that's not true. The world isn't coming to an end. This is not a dream. The mind is sleeping and dreaming, and it does not know itself. So this is very important. So right now, if you have your sheet of paper, what I want you to do is, on your right hand and your left hand, we're going to do who am I, and you're going to write out some things that, who am I? I am that has no name. I am that can't be explained. I am primal light. I am luminous, pure consciousness. I am that I am. I am the ultimate truth. I am the eternal self. I am formless, timeless, boundless, limitless, deathless. So when you're writing of who am I, you want to write some affirmation that affirms who you are. And so something like this is what you want to write. No, that's in your left hand. You're going to trace your hand on a sheet of paper, and that's what you, on each finger, you're going to write 5 affirmations that you're going to say for this whole week. That's going to affirm to you who you are.
Who am I? Affirmations. I am that has no name. I am that can't be explained. I am primal light. I am luminous, pure consciousness. I am that I am. I am the ultimate truth. I am the eternal self. I am formless, timeless, boundless, deathless.
On your right hand, when you trace it on the sheet of paper, you are going to write 5 things that you're going to use, because what you want to do is to bring your mind to stillness, right? So you're going to write 5 affirmations to reprogram your mind. Like you want to say, I am stillness without thought. I believe in myself, because you know what? The mind doesn't want you to believe in yourself. And you can say, I trust my inner truth. I trust my inner wisdom. I trust my inner teacher. And the big one is, I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am not this ego character. You have to say that.
I am stillness without thought.
So I want you to write those things down. Right hand is for reprogramming your mind. Left hand is for affirmation, to affirm to you who you are. And you are going to do those affirmations throughout this week, for the 7 days until we meet again on next Sunday. So when you say like you're saying, I am primal light, I am self-luminous, I am the eternal self, to reprogram your mind. So let's do it together. You say, and then you're going to do this seals it. The vibration sends it all through your body. And you want to do this after you say these affirmations, so that you can reprogram your mind to be more open and to be ready to go looking for the yourself that is obscure behind it, so that the mind can wake it up. Because what we're going to do is that you're going to chant for yourself to wake up. And I am going to put the chant at the end of the video so that you can sit down and, and do that. So what are we doing? Can you type in the chat so I can know that you understand, on your right hand and your left hand? I would love to play a song right now, and we can do that who am I self-inquiry chant. And so that you want to get into the habit of just asking, who am I? So I am going to play a video, and this is a video that I work with children with. So you can just watch the children at first, and then after it, the meditation is going to start.
Who am I? What am I made of?
So you know that I'm bringing this through to children also.
What am I made of? Who am I? What am I made of?
Very good.
Say, who am I and what am I made of? Good job. Who am I and what am I made of? I can't hear you. Who am I and what am I made of? You have to ask the question, because that's the only way you're gonna know. Say, I got to ask a question. I've got to ask a question, because that's the only way I will know. Will you know if you don't ask the question? You won't know. You have to ask. So say, who am I and what am I made of? Who am I? What am I made of?
Very good.
Who
Who am I?
am I?
And what am I made of?
What am I made of?
Very good. You have to ask the question, because you don't know. People are telling you who you are, and I want you to know for yourself who you are. All right? Who am I and what am I made? Who are you asking? You're asking yourself. Yes. Say, I am asking my intelligence within me. I am asking my wisdom within me. I am asking my supreme teacher within me. Who am I and what am I made of? You have to ask your intelligence within you and let it tell you who you are. Who am I? Who am I? What am I made of? Very good. Come on. No. Who am I? What am I made of? Very good.
Who am I? What am I made of?
Very good. Come on, Carter.
Where am I?
What am I made of?
Where am I made of?
Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. I've got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll know. Got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll grow. Who is the real me? Real self arise. Ego gotta go goodbye. Bye-bye, ignorance child. Who am I? Self-inquiry. I self-inquire within. I self-inquire to know my truth. Who am I? What am I made of? How did I come into being? How did I get here? Where do I go after I leave here? What is the source of my existence allowing me this world experience? What is my destiny? Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who is the real me? Real self arise. Ego got to go goodbye. Bye-bye, ignorance child. I got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll know. Got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll grow. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Self-inquire. I call, 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 I call. I call on my supreme truth within. I call on my supreme truth within. I call on my supreme wisdom within. I call on my great supreme teacher within. I call on my great supreme intelligence within. I call on my great supreme wisdom within. I call, I call, I call, I call, I call, I call. I call, I call, I call, I call, I call, I call. I call on my great supreme teacher within. Rise. Real self arise. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Real self arise. Ego gotta go goodbye. Bye-bye, ignorance child. Got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll know. Got to ask the question, that's the only way that I'll grow. Who is the real me? Who am I? Self-inquiry. I seek my truth from within. I seek my truth from within. I seek my great supreme truth from within. I seek my great supreme teacher within. I seek my great supreme intelligence within. I seek my truth from within. I seek my great supreme wisdom within. I seek my truth from within. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? What am I made of? How did I get here? Where did I come from? How did I come into being? Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who is the real me? Real self arise. Ego got to go goodbye. Bye-bye, ignorance child. I've got to ask a question, that's the only way that I'll know. I've got to ask a question, that's the only way that I'll grow. Who am I? self-inquire. I trust my truth from within. I trust my great supreme truth within. I trust my great supreme wisdom within. I trust my great supreme intelligence within. I trust my inner wisdom. I trust my inner truth. I trust my inner supreme intelligence. I trust my inner supreme teacher. I practice discernment to be able to differentiate the real from the unreal, the self from the ego. I have to be awake, alert, attentive, and aware. Who am I? Who am I? Self-inquire. Who am I? I self-inquire. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Who am I? Real self arise. Ego got to go goodbye. Bye-bye, ignorant child. I've got to ask a question, that's the only way that I'll know. Got to ask a question, that's the only way that I'll grow. Who am I? Self-inquiry. Self-inquire. Self-inquire. You've got to ask yourself the great intelligence within. You've got to ask the great intelligence within. You've got to trust your great supreme wisdom within. You've got to trust your great supreme teacher within. Self-inquire to know your truth. For starting off, you just want to listen to this song, listen to the words of it. And then there is, I will post the other ones that you are going to inquire within yourself, so that because you want to get the mind engaged, so that the mind can go looking for the self. Where's the self? Anybody want to type in where's the self? You're in class, y'all. Anybody want to tell me where the self is? Type it in the box. Tell me where the self is. Where's the self? Where is your self? Like what do you know? What do you know so far? You know, like when you ask yourself, who am I? Ah, very nice. Duality consciousness. That's right. And the self is hiding obscure behind the duality consciousness, and that's your mind. You do not want to exist, continue to exist in the world like this. What do you want to do? You want to become a partial duality. You want your supreme teacher to rise up from within you and do what? What does the supreme teacher rise up and do? Can you tell me, what does the supreme teacher rise up and do? That's right. Awesome. Wake the baby self up, and it pulls the mind, the ego character, it pulls it off of, because remember, you're dwelling like this, and then it pulls it off and it separates you from yourself. So now you can see yourself and you can see your mind, because right now you are existing in obscurity and only your mind is ruling. And when the supreme teacher pulls the mind off of you, it puts the void between. So now you can see yourself. You're like, yeah, now you got light. Now you're light. You get illuminated. Your sun starts to shine. And you know, there's some things that I don't want to say, you know, because you know, I don't know who's watching and monitoring me, but when we have like a private session, I will say some things. But yeah, your sun is shining, and now the mind still remains in duality, because we are in a duality world, in a dream, and the supreme self is dreaming up the world with our mind. That's the supreme ego, and it's the intelligence and the mind of the world, and we are inside of its dream. And you can only know this when you what? You can only know that you're inside a dream when you what? That's right. Because when you go to sleep in the night and you're dreaming, you do not know that you're in a dream. You think that it's real because the mind is dreaming and looping the self in imagination. So this is the same thing that must happen, that you must wake up. That's the only way you're going to know that you are inside of a dream. So what I want to do right now before we close off is we want to chant Aten Ra chant. And what Aten Ra means is Aten is the primal, the first light, and the Ra is the sun, right? Because that's what you are. And when we chant Aten Ra, we are connecting with our self. So we go, Aten Ra. So wherever you're at, just chant it. Aten Ra. Aten Ra. So put your hands over your heart. And if you're sitting in a lotus position, make sure that your left foot is over your right foot. And when you put in your hands on your heart, make sure that your left hand is over your right hand, because you want the left hand to be dominant. Because when the supreme teacher separates you, it puts the self on the left side and the mind goes on the right side. And you want your left side to be dominant, yourself to be dominant over your mind. Yes? Okay, so let's try it. Put your hands over your heart, because this is where your soul is, and the supreme teacher is in the soul. If you didn't give it away, you didn't give it away to one of the deities, because if this you might not know. When you call on the deities, they don't tell you that they take your soul. They are very deceptive. They take your soul and you don't know that they do that, and they hold it in bondage. So that's the trick that they do. So don't call on any deities. Just go within yourself and illuminate yourself. Okay. And another thing that you want to do is you want to make, when you're doing your meditation, you want to create a sacred circle. So you're going to spiral your electrical energy around your body. in both sides, like you're going to the left and then you're going to the right. If you can do it, all together at one, then that'd be awesome. But if not, then you can just visualize a spiral energy, and you visualize your sun and you're immersed in your sun. And this is how you always start your meditation, in the center of your sun, because it's your sun. It's not going to burn you. It protects you and keep you safe. That's who you are, your real self. Because we have to let go of all of these things that we have gathered onto ourselves and thinking that it is us. This is not us. So that's why you have to chant. So everybody say this with me. I am not this body. I am not this mind. Are you saying it? I am not this body. I am not this mind. I am not this ego character. So this is what you want to say. And so
I am not this ego, dream character, the mind avatar. I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am the eternal self. I am not this ego, dream character. I am not the mind avatar. I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am the eternal self. I am not this ego, dream character, the mind avatar. I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am the eternal self. Now, slowly come back to awareness, back to the lesson, because we will be getting ready to do the Aten chant.
So here we go. We're going to put our hands over here and we're going to call Aten because we're calling on our self. This is our original self. This is our true self, eternal self. We are primal light. So let's do that. Aten 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 mean, you can echo me if you want. I can say it and pause, and then you can say it afterwards because I can't really hear anyone. Is that okay? Aten Ra. Aten Ra.
Now let's get ready for Aten Ra chant. We chant Aten Ra because Aten meaning the primal, the first, and the Ra is the light, the sun, and we are primal light. So when we chant Aten Ra, we are connecting to our self as primal light self. So this is the reason why the Aten Ra chant is so vital. Aten Ra. So when you're doing the Aten Ra chant, I want you to sit in the lotus position with your left leg over your right leg when you're crossing your legs, and your left hand over your right hand, and you want to place it over your heart in the center of your chest, because now we want to give dominance to the self over the mind. Place your hand over your heart and let's chant. Aten Ra. 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 Aten Ra.
Hail to the self-supreme, self-supreme, primal light. I seek refuge, 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 I seek refuge in the true light. I seek refuge in the primal light. I seek refuge in the light throughout the ages. The light without beginning or end. The light without beginning or end. I call on primal light. I seek refuge in the true light. Aten Ra. Aten Ra. Self-supreme, I am primal light. Aten Ra. I am the eternal truth. I am the unmanifest. Self-supreme, all is myself. I alone exist. Aten Ra. In closing, I just want to say, give thanks to the Self-Supreme. And I want to leave you guys with the chant that you have to say to wake up your baby self. So you have to sit down and put the earphone on, and you sit in stillness and quietness so that you can listen and wait. You want to wait and put your hands over your heart like so, left hand over the right hand, so that you can bring the mind to stillness and wake up your baby self. Yes? So we have how to awake the baby self, and that will be, you'll do that on your own because I have the instructions and everything on it, because we're only going to make this workshop for an hour, and then I'll have Q&A. If you want to ask me any questions, then I am here. So I said I'll give thanks to the Self-Supreme, our Self-Supreme, who is here to bring us into balance and harmony. For ages, we have been imprisoned inside of our minds, and our Self-Supreme is here to collect all of itself back onto, so it can return back to oneself. All is myself, and I alone exist. Hail, 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 hail to the primal light. Self-Supreme, Aten Ra. Self-Supreme, self-manifest. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. And you can tell me if you learned anything from this talk, and and meet us here for next Sunday at 6. And also, bring at least 3 people with you. More, but at least 3. Any questions? Any questions? So thank you so much for joining me. See you next week.
I am Primal Light. Prepare for the world with the identity Auset. I am the daughter of the Self-Supreme, Primal Light. I am the liberator and I advocate for all selves. Remember that we are inside of a dream, and this dream is coming to an end because the dreamer has to wake up, and this will be the end of the world as we know it. We will be moving from duality into non-duality. Thank you so much. Hail, 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 hail to the primal light. All is myself and I alone exist. Hail to the primal light.